We're gonna make a fortune with this place.
How fast are they?
Well, we clocked the T-Rex to 32 miles an hour.
T-Rex?
Mm-hmm.
You said you've got a T-Rex?
Uh-huh.
Say again.
We have a T-Rex.
Wow.
Put your head between your knees.
Dr. Grant. My dear Dr. Sattler. Welcome to Jurassic Park.
They're moving in herds. They do move in herds. How'd you do this? I'll show you.
Welcome back to the FCS, aka the Football Chris Show, because my name fits conveniently in the initials. We're back for season 2, episode 1, and college football is crazy as ever. So I figured we go full panel to ring in the 2022 football season. Joining me to my left, I don't know how the screen stuff works. I'm rusty. Dustin Helton, the Rev. How are you, Dustin?
I'm doing well. This feels like a bad episode of the Brady Bunch.
It's always a bad episode of the Brady Bunch. Down below him, you've got the Screeching Eagle, Kyler Neal. How are you?
Dude, I like how Dustin had that little wave real cute. He looked real cute up there going.
Well, you two, for those of you that we are in podcast form now, for those of you that have been asking for it, but for those of you watching the show, the more traditional, Kyler and Dustin are twinning today, repping the old Bears on the Stripes. Rival of the Stripes, we've got Brandon Owens from Cocky Nation joining us. How are you, Brandon?
Working my butt off and tired, and had my last day of my summer job yesterday. So today was a great off day.
That's awesome. Happy Friday, everybody. I know this episode, everyone's like, Friday. It's probably Saturday or Sunday by the time this gets out and edited. But for us, it's Friday. We're having a couple drinks. We're going to talk college football because college football is almost becoming a little bit unrecognizable. Yeah, the brands are still there, but man, some of this just doesn't feel right. So we're going to get into that today. We're going to try to do our best to keep it under an hour, but anyone that's followed any of our 4 shows knows that that's usually unlikely. I wrote a piece for FCS Fans Nation. If you don't follow us, go join the Facebook page, FCSFansNation.com. It's kind of my opinion piece on a lot of things, but I'm not a writer, so I was trying to frame like, hey, maybe this whole super conference thing isn't that bad of an idea, right? Like, we're gonna all go into the assumption on this episode, whether you agree with it or not. I'll leave that to the Twitter sphere arguments on whether this is how football is going or not. But in the college realm, the popular opinion amongst a lot of the talking heads out there is we're turning to like a 20 to 24 team, 2 super conference thing. So about 40, basically the top 40 to 50 programs in the country are just gonna go off and do their own thing and just rake in the dough, and the rest of us are going to be stuck holding the bag. However, I think for some of us, maybe that's not too bad of a thing. But before we really deep dive into kind of that, I know Kyler and I talked about it on the Big Boy Show about a week ago, but Brandon, Rev, and then Kyler, anything else you have after, let's kind of just briefly kind of touch on our thoughts on the college football landscape after the USC-UCLA news, starting with you, Brandon Owens.
Where do you want to start specifically?
Where do you think college football is?
What I want to say is not appropriate for screen.
We'll bleep you out.
This is not a PG show. You can have your rated R moments.
Well, with me being a future teacher, I gotta watch what I say.
We'll blur your face and change your name to Brandon.
Nicely, it's a huge dumpster fire right now. Like, you have West Coast teams that are trying to join Midwestern conferences and Eastern conferences and Florida teams trying to jump to the Big 12. One of them already has. Like, it's so crazy right now. And not to mention it trickled down into the G5, and they're having to pull up FCS teams, which is kind of diluting the FCS. And it's a mess right now. Like, it's getting to a point where I know we'll touch on this later, but it's getting more to a point where the big boys are going to split, and I'll touch more on what I'm about to say. I think that will happen, and then there's going to be a hard reset.
That's basically the whole point of my article. Rev, what do you got?
I actually kind of am enjoying this because it's chaos. We could call this the FCS, the football chaos show, because that's what's kind of happened with everything that's going on. I get why UCLA and USC wanted to make the move. It's not just about football. It's about all sports. And if you think about basketball in the Big Ten, that's a great move for both of them. But the repercussions of what's going to happen with it, with the potential of the two super conferences, I don't like what that's going to potentially do for the rest of the schools. I think the financial impacts are going to be massive, especially as we get down to, as we trickle down from the G5 down to FCS and D2 and D3. And it does give me a little bit of concern as a fan of the FCS. How many schools can be sustaining at this level without, if the super conference teams were to just basically isolate themselves and say, we're going to just play each other. We're not going to share any money. We're not going to do anything. Just the economic impact is absolutely concerning.
Yeah. Kyler, any new takes?
I mean, as much as, you and I, Chris, we're Pac-12 boys for life, Pac-10, whatever you want to call us, right? So it's always die-hardened for us, right? It was sad when we heard this news, but with name, image, likeness, with all of these TV deals, I mean, it is just insane that there was even a division of football where Ball State was trying to go toe-to-toe with the budget of Texas. Like, that is way bigger of a difference than anything FCS from the bottom tier team to the top tier team. That is basically going from D3 to North Dakota State. It makes no sense that some of these were already in the same conference to begin with. So it makes sense that they're going to have this power league, top 40 teams, because those are the only teams that really are capable of doing anything anyway in that league. It makes sense. It sucks because of what we grew up with. But when you go 30 years down the line from now and you ask the new podcast kids, hey, how do you feel about this? Nothing's going to even change from them. They're going to be like, wow, you guys operated in such a weird way back then. You had Ohio State competing with MAC teams. What the hell is going on with college football? So, I mean, it just makes sense. We're not doing the Winnipeg team versus the Dallas Cowboys. It just makes sense that this is the way it looks like, college football is forming. It's just a bummer, but it is what it is. It was going to happen, especially with name, image, and likeness. You're not going to be able to even compete as a WSU fan, right? You're not going to be able to sign college kids who are going there to try and get, John Deere tractor $100,000 check to get their, best recruit ever in history, where Texas A&M can do whatever the hell they want. So it just makes sense. It's going to be better in the long run. Rev's enjoying the chaos. Brandon thinks it sucks. Chris and I are sad, but it just makes too much sense.
Yeah, and I'm not all out on the Pac-12 yet because everyone said the same thing about the Big 12 last year, but that's a whole different story. And Kyle, I just want to point out something like just how different context can be in the fact that I'm pretty sure what you said to start your sentence has been said on ESPN by the likes of like Feinbaum and Herb Street and Joel Klatt and all those, the guys who make the big bucks to say these things. But when Kirk Herbstreit tells me, I can't believe we even had a division where Ball State's trying to compete with Texas, I go, shut up, you Ohio State prick, But then when we have people here from the FCS level going like, yeah, it makes no sense.
It makes no sense.
That, especially as a Vandal fan, we used to go to LSU to get our teeth kicked in. It made no sense.
Yeah.
When you put it that way, I guess, say context and who's delivering a message sometimes matter. We're somewhere below that G5 level, but not the power. When none of us are Power 5 guys coming at you like, yo, Brandon went to Alabama, I went to Wazoo, Kyler went to Washington, and Rev went to Texas, and we're telling you, like, Texas State has no business playing Texas. Ohio has no business playing Ohio State. We're here from the FCS level telling you, like, hey, yeah, when you actually kind of, do the math, the thing that they teach you in college, this doesn't really pencil out.
Not at JSU.
Yeah.
We just stand for just show up.
But it's funny because I know I've heard people say what you said before, and I've just totally dismissed it. And then you said it, I'm like, that makes total sense. I'm like,
I actually don't like that argument.
Oh, well, then fight it. Let's go.
I don't like. I mean, it's not just at that level, right? Let's think about this. I mean, even at FCS, it's the equivalent of that is you have North Dakota State, having a team like Robert Morris or Stonehill or even freaking like Delaware State competing with them. I mean, each level of football has its haves and has its have-nots, and I don't think that argument necessarily holds water just at that level, because I mean, if you're going to do it that way, it has and have-nots, and you have to completely restructure every division of football at that.
Is that bad?
And you
Right.
probably do, but my whole
We're not
argument
getting
is
into.
the gap is so much bigger than even what you just said with Delaware State and NDSU, than Ohio State and the lowest MAC team. Like one person on FCS Fans Nation, when we were doing the Patriot League, because we do these team series, they're like, holy crap, the Patriot League, all of these teams have $1 billion. They're like right behind the Ivy. I had to put it in perspective. No, the richest Patriot team is still closer to the poorest FCS team than they are to the Ivy League, right? Because if you were $2 billion off from a endowment, you're still $48 billion off from the Ivy League. So, I mean, there's definitely needs to be restructuring in every single conference, and I believe that's what the show's coming. But I just look at the gap from the FBS, and it's only going to continue to get bigger because there's more dollar revenues. When you look at the bottom of the FBS, we already think as FCS guys that half those teams should already be FCS to compete with their true, institutions, to compete with their true level of play. And you see the Ohio States, the LSUs, the Alabama, the gap just gets worse and worse every single year in my opinion.
So Kyler, I guess a follow-up question to that is let's think about this. Let's think about P5, G5, FCS. Is Division I too big?
Yeah.
Yes.
I saw numbers the other day, and there's like 187 261 Division I football.
There's 130 FCS, 131 FBS.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like
But-
that.
In my article, I pointed out when actual D1 split in '78, there was only about, I think, 181 total programs or something around that level.
Yeah.
So you're talking about there used to only be 101 total D1 schools, and now we're at 261. At one point, you could almost fit the entire FBS into D1 as a whole when the split originally happened. So I do think there are too many. And to back up Kyler, which I rarely do. Kyler and I love to go throat to throat on things.
We don't agree on anything.
A point of North Dakota State and haves and have-nots. North Dakota State should probably not be in the same level of football as the Pioneer League.
Right.
Oh, absolutely.
The Pioneer League doesn't even offer scholarships.
They
So
shouldn't
we're
be
talking
at all.
about
Yeah.
trimming fat right there. No offense to any of those schools, but if you're not willing to offer a scholarship for football, should you be D1?
They need to change the bylaws because, of course, those
Yeah.
are Olympic Division I teams. So they had to say, if you still want to be playing basketball at the elite level, you need to take your D2 football team and bring it to Division I. And they're like, well, we will. We just can't afford the scholarship. So we're going to create a whole new FCS Division I conference that doesn't need scholarships, right? It makes no sense. Just either drop or invest.
Alex Boatman's been saying this for years. Football needs to be treated as its own animal.
It does.
The Pac-12 can still exist.
Yeah.
For hoops, for volleyball,
Olympic sports,
for men's indoor beach volleyball or whatever the Pac-12 offers. That can still exist. But USC and UCLA should be able to go play in the Pac-12 or the Big Ten and make their money. I mean, maybe not. But, in this world of if football's treated differently, that's it. So before we get too much into the weeds about dropping teams, going up teams or whatever, because we kind of jumped more towards the end of the podcast and the beginning of the podcast, I did want to kind of talk about something I brought up also in that article. And Dustin, you kind of made it the Great Reset. I started the article out, and once again, you can read it on FCSFansNation.com with this quote. And I just said, it just hit me and it inspired the whole article. The big boys did not score a knockout over the smaller schools, but they did take a cautious step towards autonomy. Some headlines have called it the birth of a new super conference. The Lions are the last rising up and moving away from the Lambs. And I go on to go, that sounds like it was written a couple days ago, right? That was written in 1978 in a Sports Illustrated article about the split of 1A and 1AA.
Yeah.
To the Great Reset point, in 1978, we had a reset of college football. It almost feels like in 2022, we're doing a reset too.
Yeah.
Maybe not to that level, but we are taking the haves and the have-nots, letting the haves take a step towards autonomy, probably joining the college football playoff because it's its own separate entity and making their own thing, maybe completely away from the NCAA. But my question to you guys is, are we all in agreement it's probably going to go to about 40 to 50 teams?
Realistically, yeah.
I would garner to say closer to 64.
So is that the entire current P5? I'm trying to do the math here. No, because that would be
Pretty
the
close.
ACC alone
It's
would be
close.
that ad.
It's up there.
Close. It's up there.
So
yeah.
basically, like, no Syracuse, Wazoo, Oregon State.
Yeah, pretty much.
Basically, enough teams to have. I did math wrong. 48 teams.
Yeah, the 40 safeties. Yeah, so we're all in
48
agreement.
teams.
We're all in agreement.
40 to 50 teams.
That's
all right?
Jacksonville
It's in the
State
line
is
of the
just
podcast.
I did
show up.
math wrong.
Just show
show
up.
up.
Just
Our
show up.
education in Alabama is getting better, but it's still not that great.
Yeah.
Would you say you guys are ranked 48th or
Just above Idaho.
2 + 3 = chair. Good job.
It makes sense.
anyway, it's
Basically.
not the point on people from the great state of Alabama?
'Cause I think when that happens, when the split happens, you're gonna have 4, not conferences, but 4
Pods.
regions with 4 regions with 12 teams in it each.
Do you remember when they had the whole pod conversation when the pack? That's the other thing that God, we're getting way too in the weeds, but that's people enjoy it. Somebody said this earlier, like you can't blame USC or UCLA for joining the Big Ten. Flip, yes, you can. Remember when the Pac-12 was going to become the Pac-16 and add Texas and Oklahoma and do the 16-team pods and be the first conference to do pods? And like the media thought it was stupid, but USC is allegedly the one that blocked the whole dang thing. And now they're sitting here seeing what Texas, Oklahoma did a year ago, and they're like, "Well, that makes sense now." What different world would we be in if the Pac-12 had Texas, Oklahoma, UCLA, USC, right? Like, of course, and then they had 2 other teams to add with that because they would have only been the Pac-14. So you're looking at, who knows, maybe 2 teams from the Big Ten, maybe probably 2 more from the Big 12, or whatever the alternate what if universe is here. But like, yeah, you can 100% blame USC because they blocked this idea a decade ago. But
This is a side topic. Did you guys see UCLA is getting in a little bit of trouble because they did not submit anything to the California system?
I did not see that. But
No.
So USC is a
serious?
private school. They can do whatever they
can do
want. But the state of California, I guess UCLA did this without, and this is all just a quick article I saw. I didn't even read through it, so maybe I'm completely wrong. But it said they are about to slap UCLA with tons of sanctions.
Yeah, because that's slap in the face to
The whole
obviously
California
Cal,
system, the public system.
UC Davis, UC Irvine, UC there's like 7 schools in the UC system.
Yeah.
And they all move as one. Not all of them have football. That's obviously why only UC Davis. But
So we'll see.
Yeah.
Maybe this isn't over. Maybe.
But to the point I'm trying to get to here. So we're talking. The rumor is that every school at the Big Ten with the new TV deal is going to have about $100 million, right?
Yeah.
So my question to you guys is, I don't think anyone's going to argue that probably that brand was probably close to getting it regardless of USC, UCLA. They will get there with USC, UCLA. Kyler and I have talked about this a lot, and I want to kind of get into this. What do you guys kind of see the future of broadcast being? I know the Big Sky gets a lot of flack for the whole Pluto TV deal. And even in that, some sense, the CAA gets a lot of flack for Flow Sports. I think we might be moving somewhere closer to a hybrid model of that, where you're going to pay per conference, like Flow, and the conference is basically going to put on their own thing, and you're going to buy the Big Sky Plus package somewhere, is where I think we're going. So Kyle and I have talked about this. We really think this is the last year that ESPN, Fox, NBC, and CBS are really even going to have a say in some of these TV deals, and you're already starting to see it. Apple apparently approached the Big Ten, so we might not even get those this time. Like they might go to Apple TV. For those of you that aren't aware, Apple TV just signed a $1.8 billion deal with Major League Soccer to be their production partner, I think, for the next decade. So Apple is already making moves into the sports field. I think we're there. I think we thought it was a couple of years down the road, Kyler and I, but we might be there. Apple TV might own the Big Ten, and Amazon Prime might own the SEC. And then ESPN and Fox, who have allegedly been pulling some strings behind the scenes, are kind of left holding the bag going, oops, we kind of ruined our biggest property because it's no secret ESPN's most popular thing is college football. So I guess my question to you guys is, where do you guys see, like, TV-wise, college football going? Dustin?
I think you're right, except I think ESPN will have a partnership. I bet theirs will be with the SEC because if I'm not mistaken, they have a contract right now with the SEC network for all the other Olympic sports and things like that. And so I think that will stay together, but I think you won't be seeing 11 o'clock Big Ten games on ESPN anymore, right? It's just going to be SEC football. And then I think you see Fox make a play for, whatever's left, the Big 12 or the ACC, and become the ACC thing. I think you're right to where it's going to be individual networks and individual streaming services having an individual conference. And then for, like you said, smaller schools, smaller conferences, it's going to be a paper subscription type thing. I liked the Pluto TV deal for the Big Sky. I thought it was a great deal, and it actually, for the most part, kind of worked. Unlike
I think it was ahead of its time. Was it?
Yeah, I mean, I liked it because I could watch when SFA played SUU. I could easily just download Pluto, not have to really get into anything, and watch the game for free. Right? It was a great thing.
The opposite of Flow
So no, I
Sports,
don't think ESPN opposite of Flow Sports. But I don't think you're going to see ESPN holding the bag. I just think you're going to lose those 11 o'clock Big Ten games. You're going to see more. You're going to see ESPN become the SEC network, basically. And plus, maybe still have game day.
Yeah. Kyler?
Yeah, I think the larger conferences are still going to have some type of streaming platform. Of course, the Pac-12 network was a big fail, but of course, that wasn't a streaming platform where everyone can get it everywhere in the country. But the difference in why I want to bring this up is because this is probably going to affect the smaller teams, the smaller conferences. I really see a future where, and this may separate, where we just said Division I's too large. This may separate it. The quality of cameras are getting way better for way less, right? It is much cheaper. We see movies filmed on iPhones now. Of course, no one's going to be doing that. I do think there's a future of college athletics, or at least college football in general. Maybe not the Olympic sports, but college football in general, where each individual team actually has their own streaming platform. They're paying for their own ads, getting their own advertisement. And of course, you're going to see the haves and have-nots when it comes to local advertisement. So I think that's kind of, for at least the smaller tier schools, what we're going to see. Maybe not in the next 5 years, but probably 10 years down the road, you're going to see maybe a North Dakota State that has a giant fan base go, why are we sharing this Missouri Valley revenue if it ever comes to that? Why are we sharing this with North Dakota? Why are we sharing this with Missouri State when we can actually get our own advertisement, put a better quality on the field, and get all of our money? This is kind of the reason with the Pac-12. UCLA and USC did not want to share. Yeah.
Like, they sold all the rights to Learfield. Learfield sold ad space, and they rake in all the money.
And the conference gets their cut, and the individual teams get their own.
Sirius Radio is not running, live broadcasts of every individual school, right? Like, every individual school runs their own radio broadcast. But back in the day, radio was the way that people took football, and that's kind of what TV is. And I think you're right to where, like, I think conferences are going to wake up and go, like, or in conferences, teams will look at the Notre Dame model and go, okay, it's not NBC.
Yeah.
But, like, if we just ran ND Vision, which they already have, and sold our own advertising and sold our own platform, is that better for us because we control the message and we might not make as much to begin with, but in the long run, probably becomes more profitable. Sorry, I interrupted your point. Keep going.
No, I was going to say it just makes sense with, like, the Boise States, the North Dakota States, some of these schools that kind of already control their own market, and they don't want to share all of this revenue with the whole conference. So guess what? The conference isn't going to be mad if they go, well, you give us a cut of your shares. We can still have a conference. We can still bring teams in, still play regional. But guess what? You control your own destiny. The money is endless with what you need. Just give us a cut. And I don't think many schools are going to balk at that. Now, some schools are going to go, holy shit, we don't have fans. We can't generate TV audience. This isn't the league for us, right? And I do think in 10 years' time, it's going to be a bigger split. And maybe we will see something like that because we're going to move to an independent model where everyone has control of their own stuff.
Brandon, thoughts on TV?
Yeah, obviously, like Kyler and Dustin have said, the bigger programs like the SECs and the Big Tens, they're gonna obviously have their own networks and everything. But just to kind of touch on the smaller schools, like, and the smaller conferences, like the conferences that usually play the ACC, the SEC, because SEC and ACC have a contract with with ESPN. I would not be surprised if those conferences like the Big South, the Atlantic Sun, SoCon, where they are kind of in, they have their own contract with like ESPN Plus.
Well, I mean, let's be honest. The SEC is not getting rid of SoCon weekend.
Right.
Alabama needs their annual spanking of Wagner. Like,
right.
come on now.
But what I'm saying is, like, you're definitely going to be seeing a lot, especially a lot of these Southern schools. They're going to try to hold on to ESPN by having that ESPN Plus contract. It's been like Jacksonville State. It's been working wonders for Jacksonville State. Maybe not money wise, but for like viewership and stuff like that for our alumni and fan base that is spread out all over the Southeast, where some of us cannot be going to all of these games all the time because they either have families, they live far away. Right now, gas prices. So I mean, being able to have that ESPN Plus subscription that's worth what, $5, $6, $7 a month, like being able to pay that monthly and be able to watch your own team on a cheaper streaming service like ESPN Plus, it's very beneficial. Now, I don't know what Kyler was saying about the individual teams. I think JSU could kind of go that route, like he was saying with North Dakota State. But then again, in our state, you have Alabama, Auburn, Troy, South Alabama, UAB, Georgia Tech. Like it'll be harder for schools like us to do that. But I wouldn't say it's impossible for schools like Jacksonville State to do something like that.
Two things. I've been doing this too long. I already know SoCon people. I meant Mercer, not Wagner. Calm down. You go delete your comment down below. Second thing, I'm also not scared of the people in Mobile, Alabama. USA does not have fans. Come on now. Troy, you had me. Then you went to South
Troy.
Alabama. As a former Sun Belt member myself, South Alabama does not have fans. Yeah. But I think you guys are right. I think we might be headed towards kind of a create your own content. The Big Sky, in essence, is already doing that. Yes, they have the ESPN Plus deal, but the schools are producing their own content. Mm-hmm. So you're already kind of seeing schools have that thrown upon them when they have a deal.
And it's already paid.
And the Big Sky, this isn't even arguable, has the best TV deal because they're also negotiates where they get 2 games on the main network every single year currently. And once again, back to like how the MLS did the Apple Plus TV or the Apple whatever TV deal for MLS Plus. ESPN and Fox, who are currently partners with the MLS, can still buy games. The only difference is there'll be no blackouts. So the whole deal is like, yeah, like for anyone that knows MLS, like let's say LA Galaxy and LAFC are playing each other. It's a big game. Fox can still pick it up and broadcast it on their airs, but the people that don't have TV can still watch it with the subscription. And I think that's the model to move forward to, is no blackouts. Like as a Mariners fan, I've been streaming for years. The issue is Root Sports, who also hosted the Big Sky games, doesn't have a streaming net access because they were stuck in some stupid contract as well, which is what I like about this current thing is there's no contracts. The only contract is with Apple, and they guarantee every game is available on their platform. ESPN and Fox can pay to pick it up, and that way bars can play it or whatever. If it's a big game, it'll draw eyes, and they can sell their own ad revenue. But the game will be available to anyone that pays that subscription. Mm-hmm. So I hope that's the method we move towards. And you guys kind of touched on the smaller teams, which kind of brings me to my next point. I want to know the last time any of you three have watched the G League, AAA baseball, or like the EPL championship on television?
What?
I actually watch AAA baseball occasionally during the summer, so
On
yeah,
TV or in person?
not well, obviously through streaming.
Oh, so you do streaming.
Yeah, not
Okay.
not like the entire game. I'll tune in to. I'm a big Durham Bulls fan, so
Okay. So we're calling it 25% of this podcast. I mean, I watch the championship because like I'm a hoops fan, which you can't really see back there. But my point to this is, and it's in my article again, I keep plugging that, but that's also part of the reason I came up with this idea, is are people interested in Division II football? Like not obviously NCAA Division II football, but are people interested in what is college football, I guess, is my question. When we are going to have $100 million to each school in these TV deals, and when, who knows, I've heard the playoffs could be 12, they could be 8, they could be whatever. Basically going to have SEC versus the Big Ten, allegedly. Like, how long till people get bored of – I mean, we've seen what the USFL is. We've seen what the XFL has done, and we've seen what the AAF have done. I'm not saying these are different, or, those are spring leagues. This would be a fall league. But at the end of the day, is it too unrash of me to look down the line and go like, at some point I'm watching Ohio State, even with NIL, offer players $1 million contract. Alabama's starting quarterback was making $1 million last year. At what point do we look at it and go, yeah, but the NFL's still paying rookies quarterbacks what, 17 million, or I don't even know, a lot of money their first year, whether they're good or not, just getting drafted, right? It's set. The NCAA, in my opinion, has either three ways this can go. Either it becomes a glorified second tier of football in America, and you start to have a pyramid system where, like, the NFL is king, and, Ohio State versus USC and Alabama versus Clemson, it's just your average, really good second tier game that the people that follow those schools will care about. There's the option where, which I honestly think maybe is less likely, but likely, where college football surpasses the NFL. I think it's unlikely because you don't have individual ownership. But if you do look at it, attendance-wise, stadium-wise, passion-wise, there's 1,000% more passion in the college game, especially with the programs mentioned, compared to the NFL. I mean, the Cleveland Browns, when they're bad, put, 17,000 people in their stadium? When Vanderbilt is bad, they still put 20, 25,000 people in their stadium. So it's like, that's where I'm kind of going for this. People do care. Like, I'm a Seahawks fan. I still watch my Vandals when they're bad. The Seahawks, sometimes a little bit harder to care to pay $300 to go to an NFL game. Obviously, some of that's price oriented. But I'm saying, like, and the third tier is just falls flat in its face, and 10 to 15 years we have a reset. But, I mean, I want to know your guys' thoughts on, like, what college football is with the Super Conference. Like, is it going to stand out on its own different from the NFL, or is it naturally going to become this rivalry for eyeballs? Because I think right now it's separate. NFL is Sunday, college football Saturday. One's the top flight of college football, one's the top flight of professional football. If we're paying players and teams are raking in hundreds of millions of dollars, is this not professional football at some point where you're just automatically signed into a 3-year contract by committing to a school?
It's definitely going to be almost like the AAA ballpark. The only difference is college football is never going to die. Even if it's a second shadow, or for a lot of people, it's the first over even the NFL. The good news is it's always separated by 2 days, right? Sunday, Monday, Saturday, Friday. So we don't have to truly compete. But the beauty of college football compared to the NFL, none of us have ever been a part of the NFL franchise. None of us have ever been a part of the NFL team, right? You grow up being fans because they're the top level of football, and we all love football. But the beauty about college sports and why it's never going to truly die, every time you go to college, which a lot of people do, you become a part of that team if you like it or not, right? So a lot of people get pride on it. Now, some people, like at Eastern, like at Idaho, you start becoming, well, maybe not Idaho. I was going to say you start becoming Boise State fans, but the rest of the guys in this, group chat, we know more. Jacksonville State, you become Alabama fans because you were before you went to the college. SFA, you're Texas, you're A&M fans because typically you are fans before you went to college. Eastern, you're UW, you're WSU because you were those fans before you went to college. But there's a little bit of a sense of pride, especially when your team's killing it. So that's the beauty of college sports. But the only difference is that the tiers are going to continue to get bigger just because no matter what, you always want to see who the best is of the best. And at the end of the day, Chris, you, Rev, Brandon, we all probably most likely go watch the top tier teams play, right?
All right.
If my team is not playing and then I have an Oregon versus Georgia game, you better believe I'm going to watch Oregon and Georgia.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just one of those things. You want to see the top tier athletes. You want to see the stadium size. You want to see the crowd. You want to see the big money players. But it is always going to be slightly separate than the full-on NFL, even though it's going to turn into a pro system in a sense because they are going to be reckoning millions in the top-tier teams.
So I have one point, and Dustin or Brandon, if this ends up going into your points, just cut me off. But so my point to that would be, I'm a big baseball fan. I live from a pretty fun atmosphere to go to a college baseball game 8 miles away in Wazoo. I lived in Seattle. They have a great program. I never went to a college baseball game. I've been to over 100-something Mariners games in my lifetime. College basketball, not quite on the same level where it's competing against the NBA, right? I watch Idaho, which is a point I think we're going to get to later. I watched maybe Duke, North Carolina. But I don't turn in a regular. March Madness is out the door because the beauty of March Madness is the fact that you have Richmond playing Kansas, right? That is, you have Eastern Washington leading Kansas till the final minutes. That's the beauty of March Madness. Take that out because that's not going to happen in this version of college football. So you're also taking this version of college basketball where there is no March Madness. How much are you watching Kansas versus Texas? How much are you watching Purdue versus Indiana? How much are you watching Syracuse versus Maryland? Are we watching these games from the basketball perspective? And I know basketball's a different sport than football, but that's kind of where I'm going at is it's already kind of competing with the NBA in an essence because you can only go for 1 year and then all the good players go to the NBA. And that's why I think college basketball is taking a dip in popularity. So my argument to your point was we watch it, but that's because right now it's the top level. Where basketball, you have Zion Williams come in 1 year, Duke, tear everything up, be awesome, leave, and now everybody's watching New Orleans Pelicans. They're not watching Duke anymore.
I bet you Duke still gets more numbers than the Pelicans.
You know what I mean? But Duke had more eyeballs when they had Zion Williams, right?
The Duke North Carolina game is only least expensive game than the Super Bowl, right?
Yeah.
So those are those games. No matter what, you're always watching.
But I'm saying, are you interested in Indiana Purdue? Because that's a big basketball game. They're both traditional powerhouses. Yeah. But I don't turn on the Big Ten Network and watch Indiana Purdue.
Well, you're missing out.
And I think I'm a sports fan.
Yeah, I have to agree with Dustin. You're missing out.
You're missing.
That's on me.
So
even though I don't have a dog in that hunt for that game, Big Ten Big Ten and Big 12 basketball are fun to watch.
Yeah, I'm a March Madness guy. I'll claim that. I watch Idaho. I'll turn on the Gonzaga game when they're playing St. Mary's or BYU. But even that, growing up a Zags fan, I don't watch Gonzaga versus San Francisco.
I watch them all. I
watch Gonzaga. Maybe that's me and my affinity for college basketball is I love the tournament, not necessarily the sport. But that was kind of my point is that. But sorry, I threw an intervene in there. Dustin, hit me with your kind of thoughts on where college football is when they're in my opinion, going head-to-head with the NFL for eyeballs.
They're not, and the thing you've left out, one of the biggest draws for college football versus the NFL is the atmosphere of the games. It's the pageantry, it's the band, it's the students, it's the crowd. Those things are picked up on TV, right? Even if you're watching a very poorly attended Eastern Michigan game, something that's on part of Maction, right? You're still getting all those intangibles from the college football atmosphere that you don't get in the NFL. NFL atmospheres suck. I'm just going to be honest. For the most part, most stadiums, they're terrible. And I don't know if Kyler has been to a Houston Texans game, but the Texans have the worst atmosphere out of any NFL team I've seen.
I spent $20 and got 50-yard line seats last year, 2 rows up.
Yeah, it's like $300 to watch the Browns in the nosebleeds at Hopkins.
It's like going to a museum inside NRG because it's cold and you really can't touch anything on the field, right? So that's what makes college football great, and that's why people watch it, because they watch it for those other intangibles. It's not just about the actual game; it's everything else that's surrounding it. They watch it for Corso, they watch it for Herb Street, they watch it for all those folks. With college basketball. Yeah, in college basketball, the same thing you get. You have people who are big college basketball fans. I won't lie to you. I'm a bigger college football fan than I am an NFL fan. I'm a bigger college basketball fan than I am an NBA, right? and you get the same thing. There is nothing better than watching Big Ten basketball. There's nothing better than seeing the students in the ozone of Michigan State going nuts. There's
best.
I mean, there's Big 12 basketball. I mean, even SEC's got good student sections. The Pac-12's got great basketball too.
Yeah.
And then you got Gonzaga. I think you're discrediting the other things besides the game. Yes, and name, image, and likeness is going to change some things, but yes, the college football is basically a puppy mill at some schools for the NBA, but it's still a great product to watch, even if you have players moving out. I mean, the transfer portal is basically making it like the NCAA to NBA, but just for different college teams, because you got a guy who's going to play for 1 year at SFA, or let's use Cam Ward, for example. He's playing at UIW last year. Now he's at Wazoo, right? Yeah. It's what you're seeing with NIL and the transfer portal is that folks who are taking a great year and using it to better themselves. It's no different than anybody who has a great year at their job and tries to get a promotion. It's the same thing.
So I got two. Okay. I have 2 points before we get to Brandon. So first point would be
Idaho State sucks at basketball. The whole state.
Yeah. Even Boise State.
Yeah.
No, College of Northern Idaho is pretty good. All right. In the end.
There you go.
So my first point to you would be then also, but is it also safe to say that college basketball, when they're negotiating these TV contracts, have very little to do with the dollar value?
Yes.
Because that is why Kansas is not being looked at for any of these super conferences. Yeah.
March Madness is the money.
If basketball mattered, Kansas would be in the SEC or the Big Ten.
Well, Kansas is already in the Big Ten. But
they're in the Big 12.
Big 12. Sorry, Big 12. Kansas will be in the Big 10 for basketball. They'll get pulled. I think the problem. I just pulled a U in Wagner anyway. I think that what I was going to say is you'll see Kansas get pulled to the Big 10 because the Big 10 is going to look at them for opportunity.
Nope.
He looks great.
His point was so good it froze. But
Kansas internet.
Well, yeah. Brandon, while he goes to that. Wow, you hit. Oh, there we go.
There we go.
Yeah, Wi-Fi. I guess Kansas got mad I was insulting their team. And
Kansas is like,
we're not good enough for the Big Ten.
Bill Self's like, I hear negative energy.
We don't want to go against Ohio State. Oh, this isn't a Longhorns fan? Let him speak.
I'm not a Longhorns fan. I live in Texas. I don't like UT. I don't like A&M. My
Bill Self,
team is Notre Dame. It's Notre Dame. So.
Anyway, and then I even forgot my second point. But I was saying, I don't think the money is there for basketball. I think part of that is because, unfortunately, like you meant, it's a puppy mill for the NFL or the NBA, which I think does affect it a little bit. But you also hit one point that maybe Brandon's going to get to. I know him being an Alabama fan. I literally think there is that opportunity where this split won't kill the NFL, but I think there's a point where the NFL looks at it and goes, shoot, because like you said, I think there are more people that are college football fans than NFL fans. And I think you even see it in a market like Seattle. I'm not saying the Seahawks have great attendance and the Huskies necessarily haven't. Well, they have with Peterson, but it's on again, off again, fair weather fans. But you look at it, and when you're walking around town, you see way more people usually wearing a Husky hat on a regular just freaking Saturday than a Seahawks thing. It was like that when I was there, Kyle.
Did you live in University Place?
No.
The whole west coast of that.
I lived right next to CenturyLink Field or Lumen Field, whatever they call it.
Okay, go outside of that little bubble.
Right next to the Seahawks Stadium?
That little bubble. Everything else in Washington is Seahawks over anything else.
The rest of Washington, probably. I know it honestly seems more popular in Eastern Washington. Anyways, beyond my point, I do think there's a chance that college football could not maybe pass the NFL, but make the NFL go do we want this? Brandon, sorry. I know I'm just throwing in points. First episode of the season, I'm getting rusty here. Brandon, take your point here on where college football is.
Well, so you have states like Alabama, Virginia that don't have professional football programs. I mean, some people would argue USFL would be considered a professional like league, and technically it is, but
Let's
it's
give it till
not,
year 2. Yeah.
yeah, it's
If it
not,
survives.
it's not NFL. So like we have no NFL team here in Alabama. So our professional teams are Alabama and Auburn. And
I
then
have zero problem saying Alabama and Auburn fans give it way more shit about their programs than the New York Giants and or Jets fans care about theirs.
well, I mean, the same could be said for like UAB, Troy, JSU, like those teams to a lesser extent. But literally, if you go to any of those games, the people that are there are avid fans of that program. So I mean, yeah, in certain states, it's going to feel like college football surpasses the NFL. But I mean, even in certain other states like Georgia, where the Falcons suck, you could see it probably past the Falcons and like past the NFL. But overall, like you're gonna have certain states that put the NFL over like college football all the time, and then you're gonna have other states that put college football over the NFL the entire time.
I would say, speaking of which, USC and UCLA are a great example. I'm a big fan of Sikkim 365. They do a lot of stuff on their Baylor thing, but they do great for just college football in general.
I love them. Thank you for turning me on to them.
They are great. Paul Catalina had a great quote and said, "Doesn't it feel like college football is the only sport that doesn't listen to what their fans want? The fans asked for an expanded playoff, and instead they're getting a super conference."
Right.
And and then they pointed out that, like, just to show how much USC and UCLA fans care, the day that they made that announcement, they tuned into like LA radio to try to get an idea on the polls. They were talking about the freaking Dodgers. Like, they don't care. They do, but not to the extent of like Alabama fans care. I mean, you can see it. I was pulling up originally this thumbnail is not this. I thought about really trolling USC, and I found a photo of them playing Oregon State or Arizona State. You know, it's a conference rival, and they're running out of the tunnel, and the stadium is like 20% full.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
was
Once
like,
the Rams
USC
got there, it
Yeah.
changed the whole, like the USC when the Rams were
Okay,
back in
hold
St.
on.
Louis. No,
The Chargers were there for a minute too, and nobody was going to Chargers games.
okay, yeah, but the Rams in general, they sold over capacity, right? They were a giant thing. UCLA used to be the pride and that it's facts. You can look up the numbers. USC used to be the pride and joy of LA when the Rams were back in St. Louis. They were winning national championships. They didn't have an NFL team to compete with. The Rams got back. The attendance in USC, one of the historic powerhouses, took a fat dive. You talked about New York. They don't care about the Mets. They don't care about, look at their college teams.
They definitely don't care about the Mets.
If you go to any NFL, besides maybe Michigan, right? There's a few that definitely in Ohio, Michigan, UT, there's a few that definitely can go toe-to-toe with the NFL because the passion's there. But in the grand scheme of things, you're not beating the 49ers if you're in San Jose State, if you're in Stanford. You're not beating the Seattle Seahawks if you're UW. You're not beating like the professional
I would
teams.
even put Vols and Titans. Like, you're not going to beat the Titans in Tennessee.
Their stadium's double the size almost as the freaking.
There's very few, states that have the more college passion unless there's not a professional team to begin with. That's why we even see this at the FCS level. The teams that don't have a P5, their fans are typically more passionate, right? They don't have that competition with a level above them. Montana, the Dakotas, all of these, JSU and JMU. I give them some of the most credit because they have such a passion in really the SWAC in general, right? I give them more credit than the Dakotas and the Montanas because they have teams to compete with, and they're still putting up big numbers. They are not the top dog in the state.
Like, if you're Southern, you compete NFL, FBS, Power 5,
impressive.
And other FCS programs.
I would even throw EKU on that list too, because their numbers show that fan base really cares about that program.
Yeah.
But there's nothing to do in Eastern Kentucky. Let's just be honest. Like that's.
Louisville,
I need my moonshine.
No.
Quit insulting those hillbillies. I need the moonshine.
No, look at the geography there. They're not competing against anybody out there. They're on an island. They're getting the same thing that basically North Dakota State, North Dakota are getting. That they're on an island. There's no competition there. It's not Alabama where you've got JSU within 2 hours of Bama, within 2 hours of Auburn, within 2 hours of Troy. It's not Texas where you have SFA within 2 hours of U of H and 3 hours of SMU, TCU. Those schools, right? They are on an island out there, and they're taking great advantage of it. It's not an insult to EKU, but it's all. I would say they're an exception to that rule because there is nothing out in that part of the state.
I don't want to hear it. My school's 8 miles away from a P5 school. All right.
Well, your
No,
school,
they're not. That's a G5 school. And
that's a G5 school.
Oh,
Let's
poor
go.
Wazoo.
Oh,
Are we the first? No, we're not.
They're cooking it.
On G5.
They're cooking it even in this realignment. They're cooking it.
Anyways, moving on. I don't like a podcast where we pump up UW. I pump up UW, and then somebody else sharks on the Cougs. But so I guess my next point, getting into this, because this is an FCS show. My point in all this being, I guess, real quick, how far can this level of college football go? Like, do we see 0 changes then? Is that what we're agreeing on? Like, it'll be equally as popular. The NFL will have no issue with it. They won't see a decline either league in terms of popularity. Like, if we're paying the starting quarterback of Alabama $7 million a year now, and I'm not saying I'm against NIL, by the way. I'm just throwing out, that's probably what's down the line.
Right.
And I don't know, Jared Goff's making 10 at Detroit, or I don't know what he's making, right? But I'm just saying, like, if I live in Alabama and Detroit is playing Cleveland or Alabama's playing Clemson, and I'm an average fan, I'm probably going to take more time out of my day, save my chores for Sunday's game, and watch the Saturday game.
no.
But is that just me being a college football fan?
That's just, no. So and so here's where I think the difference is, and I don't mean to insult you guys.
That's fine.
specifically.
No, that's why we're here.
Brandon, you've been to an SEC game.
I
was like, Kyler, have you been to an SEC game or to a UT? Okay. SEC football, Big 12 football, like schools like UT, schools like LSU. Southern football is a completely different breed from what you're getting in Seattle. And I think that's the thing you're missing here is that no matter what, no matter how much quarterbacks are getting paid, no matter how much Jimbo Fisher is paying to recruit guys to go play, you're going to have sold out stadiums every Saturday. And the fans that don't go to those games are going to be watching them on TV. They're going to be watching them in bars. So I think it's a dichotomy of the geographies.
I think you misunderstood my point. I said I would rather watch Alabama Clemson.
I know. I said you would. But I'm just saying in general, I don't think you'll see any sort of decline. I guess that's my point because the game has such a solid fan base. I don't think the NFL is going to stay where they are. I think college football is going to stay where they are. I don't think you're going to see a blurring of the lines between the two.
Right. I'm more on the either going to look like an idiot or look like a genius. I think college football literally has the opportunity to pass the NFL.
Yes. Nope.
No, I don't think so.
Fan bases are 1,000% more involved. There is a shit ton of money in it. And now basically view it this way is my point. So you have the New England Patriots, and Kyler hit this point earlier. You have the New England Patriots. Robert Kraft has a lot of money. Okay? Now you have Alabama. Now you have 1,000+ alumni that have a lot of money that are essentially the owners of that team. Now you have 50 Green Bay Packers that are owned by the majority, and the people that buy shares in that company, aka your donors and your booster club. And I think you're going to see money skyrocket because the NFL has a salary cap right now. College football does not have a salary cap. You can pay your players whatever you want. If you own a dealership in Alabama and you want to pay the backup left guard $2 million to come to your team, you can. And you and 4 of your buddies can put them together, and you can have them push trucks in the summer for your marketing campaign. I think there is this rule right now where the NFL has salary. You see it in European soccer all the time. There's a reason, and it's not just that we're American, we don't care about soccer, that European soccer is significantly better than American soccer. We have a salary cap because that's how our leagues are structured. We don't have promotion and relegation. In Europe, you can pay freaking Cristiano Ronaldo $100 million a year because there is no cap on what you can pay him if you can afford it. And right now, college football has 0 salary cap, 0 commissioner, and essentially an untapped market of owners. If you are a booster and the club is willing to give you a suite if you pay $1 million to help them sign the 5-star wide receiver, I think that gives it an advantage that the NFL does not have. All that on top of the fact that college football at the Power 5 level averages 14,000 more fans already than the NFL. I think you take the regulation out of the NFL. It's fun. I saw this article. America is very capitalistic.
Yes.
Our sports leagues are the only thing we make socialized, where we set limits and it's controlled by a centralized thing. Where you go to Europe and in soccer over there, it is the free market. You want a player, pay for him, be the highest bidder. In the U.S., especially in like the NBA, there's only so much you can. They set limits on how much you can pay somebody.
But here's where you're wrong on all this.
Okay.
One, in America, even in Europe, you're paying to always see the best. In college, you are taking a 4-year time period to develop these players. There's not going to ever be a college team that's going to go toe-to-toe with any of the professional teams, right? There's also a limit of professional teams. There's only 32. There's what we just said, 261 division college teams.
But we're talking about this being 50.
Hold on, but only the elite go to the professional. There is still a mindset we are always going to want to see the best of the best go out. Second, there's teams like the Cowboys that are worth more than the whole conference of the SEC right now. You take the net worth of Alabama and what they're making yearly, it still does not compete with the Dallas Cowboys because, again, in America, we want to see the best of, and that's not even America. That's every country. You want to see the best of the best. And right now in football, it's a little different than basketball. Basketball, you can get players right out of 18. They can go, do a developmental league. They can compete with some of the top tier athletes right away. You can't really see that in the NFL. They're too big. They're too fast. You need years to develop. You need years to learn the speed of the game. You get the best college athletes, and even sometimes they go to the NFL and go, it's not that much different. And then you see them tank in the second year because they're like, holy crap, they learned what I'm able to do. They adapted. I can't keep up with them. I need to keep adapting. So that is the big difference is, for one, college is never going to replace the NFL. The NFL will always have the elite of the elite. So right there was already, I love your mindset. There's more passionate fan bases in college. I agree with that. There's always going to be a potential more passionate fan base, but it's never going to overtake the elite of the elite. And right now, that's the NFL, and no one can catch them.
I think that's a good point.
End of show. Goodbye.
No, I'm not saying you're right. I'm saying it's a good point. So moving on, because we are getting on the hour, and it is an FCS show, so we got to do it. Let's say that fans do become disillusioned. Like, I think we all just said we don't really expect that necessarily. Like, I think if you're a University of Ohio Bobcat fan, you're probably still watching Ohio State. But let's say you become disillusioned. You don't want to watch AAA, G League, whatever. This new college football basically becomes. Is there an opportunity here for a grand reset of college football where you do get a little bit of the top FCS moving into the FBS, some restructuring? This, we're going to get to the restructuring part, where you redo D1. Remember, at this point, I think it's safe to say, throw the assumption out there, somebody at the NCAA goes, look, we need to treat Olympic sports differently than football. You can be a D1 basketball program like Gonzaga, which they already are, and not have football. Like, let's treat football as its own animal.
Yeah.
Some teams drop completely. Some move to D2. Some move to D3. Like, et cetera. We reshuffle the whole thing. Go back to 1978 when we freaking did the whole thing over again. Is there an opportunity, though, to win back some of those fans, the Eastern fans, who maybe don't want to watch UW get spanked by Ohio State every year when they went to Eastern, and Eastern is competing in the new form playoffs against maybe teams they're slightly more familiar with, like out west, a Utah State, a Wyoming, a Boise State, compared to like a Northern Colorado or Cal Poly, or Jacksonville State fans are getting to play Troy and South Alabama instead of, I don't know,
Kennesaw State, UTC.
Yeah. SFA gets to play Texas State, SMU instead of Incarnate Word Lamar, right? Like, is there a possibility here where that could draw in some fans? And then for those schools too, getting to go to, to a level where they're more appreciated as well. I'm not trying to just throw salt on them.
Yes.
Is that a world where, like, not saying it ever becomes as popular as college football currently is, but is there some potential here, some market potential of a reformed college football where we get back to more reshuffle the whole deck, as it were. You know, the game has ended. This was the end of a game. We reshuffle the deck here. Conferences get almost completely realigned. Not saying, but like for a while now, they've been pushing for that next TV deal. You realign. You find like-minded institutes like it was in the beginning, usually geographically based with traditional rivals. Is there a market for that?
Yes. And I will be the first one to say we will have 3 subdivisions at the D1 level after this split happens. You'll have your top dogs like the SEC Big Ten, and then you'll have a top FCS and G5 merger, and then you'll have the rest of FCS, maybe 1 or 2 conferences as a whole jump up from Division 2 into the FCS. That will probably be the best solution to this entire mess, because you're giving everybody what they want. Because there's like North Dakota State fans, a majority of them are on the FBS train now, from what I'm seeing.
Rightfully
like
so,
they want to be FBS, but nobody wants them at the FBS level. So
yeah,
that's just my thought.
I think there may become a time where there is no Division I for football, right? You have this super conference. The NCAA is not making any money on any other of the football teams that are out there. Their big money maker for an NCAA revenue base is the basketball. It's March Madness.
Yeah.
So if I'm the NCAA, who gives a shit? Why do I even care about all these schools playing football?
Well, then why do they care about volleyball and swimming and
that was another
because
thing
it's a school like. But I'm saying, like, as if football's breaking off into its own thing, and you're already losing your biggest money makers in general, the ones that are bringing the eyeballs, who cares? No one's watching the volleyball, to be honest. I mean, unfortunately, unless you're Jacksonville State, and there's a couple ESPN Plus. But I mean, I can see a change where it's just, guess what? The NCAA, they're just there for their gimmicks, but it's not really any true Division Ones. You're going to be Division I football or Division I basketball playing in March Madness. That's the only thing that really is going to matter to them if the super conference breaks away. And then what we're going to look at, NCAA is only a basketball entity. Then it could be all the other institutions that are going, guess what, for at least football separate, right? Football separate. That's what we're focusing on. You're going to maybe see some of these regional rivalries. You're going to maybe see some of the same similar athletic budgets going, guess what, we're not a super conference. There's no true NCAA anymore. Why don't we form some of these regional stuff? Because when you get to college, you have this pride in high school, right? You want to beat your local town high school. There's always, when it was Rogers versus Puyallup, there was chance we're going, you have herpes and, stuff like that. It got pretty brutal. But you take that back with college. You want, like, when I went to Eastern, the closest college was Montana. So we felt pretty apt to them. We hated them because they were our closest competition in terms of same level. So when you're a college fan, you develop those passionate fan bases. You want to beat the regional institutions. But when you're the elite of the elite, the super elites, you don't care about the regional institutions as much as going, I think I can compete with those top tier teams. Where a lot of other programs, they're more realistic. They go, we know where we're at. We know we're not among the Ohio States. Some are delusional. Most of them go, we know we're not among there. Why not create this maybe 3-tier system where it's not truly a Division I, but it's regional. You're playing your region, and you see what's going on.
And one thing to consider that I've heard is if you took – you ready for this podcast to either get demonetized – well, we're not making money anyways.
Yeah, we do.
Punishing a lot algorithm or somebody get really keyboard warrior on us. I read this whole article. So if the Power 5 does split off and join the college football playoff, which is a separate entity of the NCAA, college football is technically no longer on the university's books in terms of the NCAA, which is the issuer of Title IX, which means you can now basically dump 53 to 85 scholarships from women's sports.
Yeah.
Which would suck, but from a university perspective,
for financials,
like we said, football for 90% of schools is their moneymaker. Not everybody's Kansas, Gonzaga, or Duke. Like, football makes the money. Now, officially, you can kind of be like, okay, I don't have to pay to send women's field hockey.
Yeah.
And for that sense, too, like, you can cut some men's sports because that's part of the issue, too. Like, we don't need men's soccer for a lot of people, especially now with the way that soccer is growing in this country. You can do it the more traditional way. Like there are sports that can be cut, which saves the universities money, which means they don't need $100 million TV contracts.
Football makes the university money. Basketball makes the NCAA money. I mean, that's the difference. And if there ever is something like that, it will piss off a lot of people. But you're going to invest more money in the actual program that gives you money.
Hey,
so if there is no NCAA regulations or law in sight, there's a chance we do see something like that. I know Rev, he's speaking up. Look at him.
I just want to say, I know that was controversial. I watched way more women's basketball this year than I did men's basketball for my university.
Yeah.
For everybody about to say whatever you're about to say, I'm just saying, like, I was just pointing out the point.
Yeah.
Like, I went to all of our women's title games here in the Big Sky, and I watched them a bunch. I'm just saying, like,
I don't.
Calm down.
Sucks.
I'm not saying get rid of women's sports. I was going from the objective perspective that you could wipe 53 to 85 scholarships off the books that you're required to provide due to illegal, covenants.
Can I make one quick?
Oh, sure. Go ahead, Brandon.
Can I make one quick comment before Rev starts his point? One other thing that I've heard is if college football breaks away from the NCAA and has its own like association, league, whatever, each tier would have its own playoff system. So we would have no more bowl games whatsoever. Because from what I have heard, the bowl games are through the NCAA. Like they have contracts through the NCAA with certain conferences. Yeah. So the fact that football is no longer with NCAA, we don't have any more bowl games.
I think the big conference would leave the NCAA to be able to make as much money and have zero guidance. I think our level of football would still very much almost need the NCAA.
We need something. Opinion. I just don't know if it's going to be.
So I think like Idaho, James Madison,
Sam
Houston would still be part of the NCAA.
Well, this new association, like all divisions of football would be under this association. Like football would completely separate from the NCAA, and this new league would be governed. It would govern all college football programs in the country, still have the same setup. The only thing different would be the extra added tier at Division I because it's needed.
I hear what you're saying, and I think people listening to this podcast probably also have your point. My whole point is that the 40 schools are going to go different. The other 241 schools are going to be left in the NCAA. Is my opinion on it. You think that everybody breaks off together, which I'm glad. That's why we have multiple people on here, because somebody probably heard your idea and goes, yeah, no, that's what I was thinking. Dustin, your point?
Well, before I get to my thing, what Kyler is right that football is a money maker to a certain extent. When you get down to smaller schools, when you get down to schools like SFA, basketball is our biggest money maker, not football, right? So
that's because of walk up.
Yeah, well, because of walk up, yeah. But I think Chris is right. I don't see the NCAA. I see the big schools going and being their own thing, which they already are now. Let's just be honest. They the college football playoff is not any way, shape, or form governed by the NCAA. That's just they're going to be their own thing. I don't think the NCAA goes away from football, though. I think they're there to help the rest of the G5 and help the FCS and those other things. I think they still stick around because I don't think they want to lose their toehold that they might still have in football. Like I think I think that would hurt the NCAA's reputation even more so than just losing the higher schools. So that's that thing. I think NCAA will still handle college football, and I think you'll still see a tiered system like we have now. I just think that honestly, I kind of wonder if what's FCS will exist as FCS, because I honestly think that if you pull up enough FCS schools, there's no reason for FCS to be the remainder to be still FCS. I think some of those smaller schools would probably consider moving back down to D2 because there's just not going to be anything left at that point. So that's just my thing is I think there will be tiers, but I don't know if there'll be 3 tiers of D1. There might only be 2. There might only be the college football playoff teams, the super teams, whatever you want to call them, and then the remainder. And then the remainder is going to figure out what the new FBS.
So let's go with that, because that is exactly we're over the hour mark, and that's exactly where I want to end the show. Is there's going to be a grand reshuffling, in my opinion, and it's my show, so we're going to roll with my opinion, and you guys are going to help me do it. Of D1 college football, I think it's safe to say, and we'll have opportunity here. Ivies are the most controversial, but like most of the Pioneer, most of the NEC, most of the Patriot, probably just boom right there, teams that you can scrap off. But we're gonna do, in my opinion, I thought 9-team conferences were great. Gives you 4 out of conference games and gives you a round robin tournament again where you can play everybody. Because I think if we're doing this right, there's no need for conference champions anymore. Like basically we're saying the FBS is going to function as the FCS, where like there isn't the SWAC, but the rest of the league doesn't have conference championship games because there's zero reason to, because you can just go to the playoffs. And I think that's more of the model that's more likely to survive. Brandon already kind of said it. Bowl games are probably going away.
Yeah.
So we're going to go on that model. In my opinion, I thought 12-9-team conference is great. It's 108 teams. Basically what the FBS was in about 1983 to 85 range. It's about the number, and they had great parity then. So that's just the thing I tended to latch on to. Does anyone have a complaint with 12-9-team conferences? Does anybody think it should be 10? Okay. Because that leads to, if you won the championship, you play 17 games. I also did a 32-team playoff. Basically the FCS playoff, but now it's completely seeded. Instead of having one has a bye, one just plays the worst seed.
Right.
More like the NCAA basketball tournament, pending the stupid playing games that nobody really counts anyways. So that was my opinion. So now you have 108 teams. With 108 teams, if we say that 40 teams move to the power conference, the whole super conference thing, that leaves 17 FCS or D2, if we want to get wild, schools that could move up. We're just going to kind of go round table here, no structure. Who's really like in contention, and like, are there any FBS schools that should just like, do people think New Mexico State and UConn and UMass should just go D2? Or do we think that in this new model of football, they do have a place? And I think it's safe to say that you would still see a lot of like-minded like we see now. We'd probably have like what we have in the FCS, the Big Three, or what we used to have in the Power Five, or the FBS with the Power Five. Let's say Cal, Stanford, Washington State, Oregon, Baylor, TCU, those teams get left out. They're probably going to find a conference with better schools. And you are going to have your schools that get, like we do now, 3-4 bids in the playoffs, and then you're going to have your leagues like possibly the Big Sky that would only get one. But it's like, so that's where I'm kind of going with this. Does anyone have any complaints about that structure? Do we think that like Washington State would be like, yeah, we're 8 miles from Idaho. Us and Idaho, same conference. Okay, I think it's safe to say like, no, they'd be like, no, we want to be with Cal, Oregon State, Boise State. Yeah. So, okay, we all kind of agree with that. So then I'm going to throw out just a handful of schools, and then maybe we'll pick them at the end. We'll see how we're doing on time. But, Brandon, I'll let you go first. Kind of like, who's your first school from the FCS or D2 level that you think, makes sense to join the restructured FBS? Start with, are there any FBS teams you think are no? Or do we all agree?
No, the remainder FBS teams aren't going to move down. This is an easy pick for me. North Dakota State.
Just kidding. Yeah.
North Dakota State. Like,
Kyler,
with their, go ahead.
They don't.
It's pretty obvious why I picked North Dakota State.
Kyler, who do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I've tooted this horn so long. UC Davis is the best opportunity to move up outside of maybe Charleston to begin with. And it's crazy thinking a D2 team already, but they're advantageous. But yeah, I would pick UC Davis right away.
As somebody who's been there, I did not agree with you, and now I do.
Yeah, it's impressive.
Justin?
Don't even get me started on Charleston. Montana.
Okay, then that'll be easy because you have to take Montana State.
Yep.
Eastern Kentucky.
Yeah, we're just going to keep going in this order. So South Dakota State, right? All these teams make so much sense.
Yeah, and then I think at that point you get to the illustrious Stephen F. Austin State University at that point.
Yeah, because at this point we're assuming James Madison, Sam Houston, and Jacksonville State are already
they're already there. Yeah.
Can we start to argue if
just so the James Madison fans are like, how are they 10 deep And
If someone says something crazy,
We're
can we
almost
start to
at
argue?
18.
100%, because I was actually just going to not argue, but just bring up the point here, because I'm not going to pick them, so I'm curious if anybody else is. So let's say, like, in this new league, right, no longer stadium requirements matter. So, like, welcome Kyler Eastern, now officially in the running. We're saying it does not matter how big your stadium is. We're looking for best programs, ambitious programs, passionate fan bases, etc. Do only North Dakota State and South Dakota State get the call?
No.
Do you think all four, or do you think maybe one other Dakota school gets it?
Not South Dakota. I would say North Dakota.
They are doing work to that Dakota Dome, though.
I think you would, for the Dakotas in general. I actually do think all four make a lot of sense.
I think so too. If you waive the stadium, thing.
Yeah, I
have to do that.
agree.
But I think you take all four, because otherwise, I think the current MAC would stick pretty well together.
Yeah.
And with that, and like I said, 9, so they're actually dropping schools, which in my opinion is probably like Buffalo and Ohio, because Ohio would make more sense to be in with like the Kentuckys. But like you look at the Dakotas, that gives them at least 3 other schools in their little area, which makes whatever school or conference were to take them, they have 4. Wherever the other 5 schools are, it really only matters for 2.5, right? Like 1 year you're playing 3 of them, 1 year you're hosting 3 of them. So it's like you're not traveling as much, where it's like, okay, if I'm North Dakota, the furthest I have to go is South Dakota for like, my regional travel partner.
Yeah.
And then, maybe you have to go to Wyoming or who knows, Tulsa, wherever they end up, right? But like they at least are almost guaranteed 2 close road games. We think all 4 would go.
I personally think they would. And I think the other 2 would actually invest to even upgrade to try and keep up. That's the thing about, those states.
They already have. You've seen it with the FCS moves, right? Like North Dakota State made the move, and then you saw all 3 of them be like,
right away,
we need to do this as well.
Delaware is a big one. 100% Delaware would move up.
Well, Biden would executive order it for sure.
Yeah, he's still crying from 2010. Ew!
I would even. I'll go ahead and say Tarleton.
No.
All right.
No.
Rev. I want to hear that. Rev has now Tarleton.
Yeah, I want to hear this because
Brandon, Kyler already said Tarleton, so you just double Kyler.
So
but Rev
I'm trying to make a
list
now. So we can go back.
And if you haven't heard it, I'm just gonna plug it. Sam Herder just did an interview with The Voice for the Tarleton State.
They're moving up, bro.
I know they are.
So why do you hate them so much? Is it because Nacogdoches is further away? Or
first of all, it's Nacogdoches. Thank you. Second of all, the thing with Tarleton is that they are ambitious. I will give them that. They also have uncle or daddy in College Station funding them because A&M wants a team to move up to that level. But I mean, yeah, they'll move. They're going to, because they're going to have the money to do it. They're going to have a 24,000 seat stadium that they're building, even though they only get 9,000 right now. And they
lose to Southern Utah.
And they lose to Southern Utah, and they only get 9,000. They only got 9,000.
Southern Utah.
Yeah, they got in their one game where they were like, oh, we're gonna get 15,000. They played a D2. They played, I think it was Midwestern State. Like it wasn't even, wasn't even getting in a Division I team in. I mean, I guess they are gonna move up. I think there's schools I'd like to see move up before them. Yeah. I think there are teams like Kennesaw. I think should move up before
that
they
was
do.
my next team that I was gonna say.
I mean, I think Kennesaw will move up before them. Honestly, I think University of Delaware should move up before them.
Yeah, that's what I said just now.
Yeah, you missed Delaware. You were
sorry. Yeah, my wife. Yeah, my wife just hates. Apparently, it still thinks I hate Kansas. I don't know.
Yeah. Missouri State is a big one.
Yeah, Missouri State's another one that's on my list of things.
They should already be up.
Yeah,
they should. Their stadium
Iowa
shocks people when they see it. They're like, wait, that's Missouri State? Well, you think Missouri State, and they've been trashed in the Missouri Valley for so long. Yeah. You just assume that they're like, God, I hate doing this because you're throwing programs. But like a Indiana State, right? Like a school that's just kind of like generic, concrete, 2-sided stadium. And then you see Missouri State, and you're like, oh, damn, like they have put some money into their infrastructure. Yeah. They just haven't been winning. Yeah, and with good old Bobby P, they are.
Yeah, one of
All
my,
right,
one of my customers is headquartered in Springfield, and so whenever I go see them, I see that stadium, and it's like they would be ready
nice.
to move up. It's very nice.
Yeah.
All right, so I think I have the last three because we're at 14 teams right now. Idaho,
Okay.
Nope.
Ooh, we'll let you finish your 4, but I'm ready for Kyler to trash my school.
Southern Illinois,
Yep.
Chattanooga.
Yep.
Those are my three.
Here's kind of the deal. I think there are so many other teams in other regions, and I don't mean this to be a dig at Chris because they do have a great alumni fan base that he was pointing out that can raise funds. There's no market for Idaho at the next level.
Yeah.
There really isn't.
Well,
There's
if
you already
Boise-
have WSU 8 miles away in a region where that's non-existent to begin with. There's no market for Idaho. Their athletic budget right now makes Eastern's football athletic budget is double Idaho's. Eastern's football revenue is double Idaho's. So I don't get all of this talk about Idaho. It's a failed experiment, to be honest. It
So
failed
here's
once.
my next question.
I think Holy Cross is even a better indication for a Northeast team, and I really do. They have a lot of funding. They have a giant
Shit ton of
stadium.
funding.
Yeah.
They're in a better area. Like, if we're just looking at pure regions, athletic revenue, athletic budget, fan base, Idaho doesn't meet any cut. They don't.
And they play in a
So was
quantified.
was Idaho's football budget worse than Eastern's when Idaho was FBS?
No.
No.
Okay.
But they were losing money drastically.
Yeah, they
Also,
were.
no.
I was about
Yes,
to
you
say
were.
that's
Look at
sad
the
if
numbers.
EWU's was
No,
higher
we
than
were
Idaho's.
as an athletic department we were, but the football program was not.
Okay.
You were averaging 6,000 fans in the Sun Belt.
We were also getting paid $1.8 million to play.
You
10
take out that
games.
TV deal,
But when
there
you're
was
playing-
nothing. That was it.
When you're one of two West
It's
Coast
not
teams,
sustainable.
Look,
when you're-
all right, I'll just put it this way. Like, I'm not going to say Kyler's wrong because I do think we are one of the on the fence teams.
Yeah. on the
Very
fence.
well could be
Yeah.
off the fence. My argument for this would be you're going off of what our fan base currently is, which we have noted multiple times on Tubs of the Club, like, has had huge issues with the FCS drop. It is no secret our attendance dropped almost freaking 7,000 people with the drop. We have had an issue recently, yes, with our finances because people are upset. The people that were happy we came back, their huge linchpin was getting to play Montana again. If Montana makes the jump and Idaho does not, this goes two ways. We fold football or we're FBS. And I'll be as frank with that as possible. People in this state, if we're not playing Montana and we are not playing Boise State, which would be if both of them are FBS, we're playing either.
Yeah.
And this is no slight at Idaho State. Maybe it becomes something in the next 3 years before possibly all this stuff becomes real. There's no reason for us to have a football program. I'm gonna be frankly honest. We would just probably cancel it.
I just
Like
know
that is the brutal, honest truth. And
Yeah.
I'm the biggest Idaho apologist and fanboy ever. If we are not playing Wazoo, Idaho, or Boise State and Montana, I do not give a shit.
Yeah.
And that is
Tyler?
saying something.
do not hate me for saying this, but because of what Chris just said, I think Idaho would move up before Eastern.
Oh, for sure. I'm not saying Eastern moves up. I think Idaho, for one.
If
who
I had
wants
to
them?
trade a
Let,
team,
let me just say this because it's not even trying to be a dig.
yeah,
When you're looking at even the West Coast teams, because at the end of the day, the West Coast is still at a disadvantage. There's not enough programs. NAU fits the mold. Cal Poly fits the mold. Sac State, even though their basketball department is gross, if you're looking at purely football, they fit the mold with their area alone and their stadium. I mean, you're looking at Weber State.
What,
I mean,
to
there's
move up?
so many. If you're putting Idaho against all of them, what is the benefit for a conference? And I don't mean this to be a dig. I love the Idaho fans. I love that they're here, but they are actually now playing the teams that they should. Montanas are not playing the teams that they should. But if you're a West Coast conference and you have one team and you're looking at even Utah Tech looks like it's going to be more promising than Idaho in the grand scheme of things because Utah continues to grow. Weber State is already big, giant school. Cal Poly, NAU. There's so many other teams, but that's even go to the Midwest. go to Texas, ACU.
Mhm.
There's so many other programs if we're trying to fill that one spot that actually that fit the mold so much better than Idaho. And it's not just me being a hater because I want them down with us, right? I'm a realist. I know where Eastern is. Unless
Like,
we find
Idaho,
a
I'll put you this way, in the reshow, like I said, Idaho won't be with you. We would draw. I think that is a great lead in here. If like Idaho doesn't get the call, what current FCS and D2 schools with this reshuffle just say it's not worth it anymore. We'll get to that here in a second. But my only other saving point would be we are a land grant institution. It's about to be tier 1 research. There has been rumbling for a while that the land grant institutions would want to do something. Like this has been years of, formula or forum fodder. Like who knows if it's real, but there is that option that like Utah State, Wyoming, Montana State, like the land grant institutions in the West would form a land, basically the Pac-12 mini of academically inclined schools. Saving grace. That aside, because this is an academic podcast, nobody really gives a rip about how
Rio Grande Valley
are.
has better chance than Idaho. I'm saying it.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I 100% agree. Counter to the other parts of Brandon, I do agree with Chattanooga. I actually agree with everybody said. But I'm going to make Debbie happy. Because I put Jackson State in there.
Yeah.
And
I forgot it, yeah.
CAT. And she literally said, like, oh, wow, you only included 2 SWAC teams. And I'm worried this could become a put down of the SWAC, but I think we're all pretty big FCS people in this. Hopefully he doesn't get taken the wrong way. But, like, in my opinion, other than maybe like a Southern, because, like, we're already talking like, yeah, Alabama, State, and A&M have great attendance and everything like that. But now you're looking at a state like Alabama that is one of the least populated in the entire country.
Yeah.
Having, what would that make it? 9 D1 schools? 8?
Because at that point, there would be a huge. At that point, there would be a huge push for UNA to be FBS,
and that's
so
what
you
my
would
issue.
have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
And so I'm saying, and my whole issue with that is, I just think Jackson State has showed with Dion, and it could change if he leaves and goes to Florida State or something. But while he's been there, and I've heard it's a clause in his contract, that's why he's pushing for it so much. But either way, it's a historic program with a large stadium and a passionate fan base.
Mm-hmm.
They could go D1. I have no issue saying Jackson State. NCANT, honestly, I feel less confident in saying. But right now, their performance and their enthusiasm seems there at the right time. I think they can make it. Are there any HBCUs we're missing here? Are there anybody else that you guys think has a realistic, like in Idaho, an on-the-fence type team?
I think the whole SWAC has an opportunity with the next level.
I would say
I really do
State
think
as well.
Yeah,
I really think the whole SWAC has an
You
opportunity
think the whole
at the next level.
SWAC? And then what? The Dakotas?
So I think the SWAC would do it as a one entity, right? It wouldn't be the only school that I think in the SWAC that you would see struggle with this would be Mississippi Valley State.
Yeah.
But
until Jerry starts throwing dimes.
Well, that's until Jerry and Jilly they start putting some more things. But the SWAC you can't view as Jackson State. They're going to move as an entity. They are one entity together. They you're not going to see Jackson State make any sort of move unless Grambling aligned, Southern's aligned, Prairie View A&M's aligned, Texas Southern's aligned. They're all together. That's going to be one big movement.
Yeah, and out of a culture and a movement, if you're looking at any current FCS team outside of North Dakota State, the whole SWAC is generating more attention, more eyeballs than anyone. So I really,
if they signed a TV contract right now, it would be the largest
by a lot. It would outdo the Sun Belt.
I would agree
it would
with
outdo the MAC.
Yeah.
So I really have
definitely outdo the MAC.
Yeah,
and they wouldn't have to play on Tuesdays.
No, and I've said this in the last podcast, and some people thought I was high. I think there's a form with the reshuffling. The whole SWAC is realistically able to move up. I even think the Ivies are realistically able to move up, and it doesn't leave a lot of room for any FCS.
Pause, because that was my next point. Don't touch the Ivies yet. But we're talking SWAC.
They need to stay where they are.
And to be fair, if you add I've lost track. The SWAC's added teams. Are they at 12 now? What is the SWAC at? 14.
14
so let's say you keep 108. It's not the end of the world. You get to 122, except now you're basically at the FBS. Like, yeah, it's at the end of the world. The entire SWAC goes up. And then if you did that, maybe you don't have to take, like, no offense to our friend Will Seiler, like a Central Arkansas, no offense to me, in Idaho. Hell, you might not even have to take a Montana State. Like, you might get the Dakotas and the SWAC. And honestly, the FBS would probably be fine. Now, you touched on it, so we're going to go with it. The Ivies. Is there, because there is that thing where they have to kind of be viewed as tier 1. And I get that, like, yeah, they're FCS, but as we all know, the FCS is D1. This split happens. What the hell do the Ivies do? Do they commit and say, we have to be D1? Like, we are, when people think of America, and no offense to, like, Texas, Alabama, right?
Ivies
Like,
and Stanford.
if you grew up in Germany and you think U.S. college, you think Yale, Harvard. You don't think USC. You don't think Penn State.
Stanford and the Ivies.
Yeah, not even. I don't even think Stanford. I think you think.
Oh,
Harvard,
Stanford's
Yale.
like a top 3 college or not, top 2. Yeah.
Okay. Either way, you think of basically call almost the entire Ivy League, but maybe like Dartmouth.
They stay or they
Brown, Columbia, you know Princeton. You basically know probably you could recite the Ivy League and maybe all their alma maters if you're from abroad and want to study in the U.S. Don't they feel like they would have to?
Their brand is
be a part of that.
The brand is big enough. Either they keep it at the top tier that's not the super conference, or they just get rid of it altogether.
Yeah.
And I don't know
They
if
just don't do football.
And I don't know if
even though
they have the balls, even though they're not getting a lot of fans and eyes, they still have that name brand. They still have the prestigious. They're still
history.
They are the
Doesn't
NFL
Yale
when it
have more
started.
championships than Alabama?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They would.
They have the history.
They'd figure it out.
The problem is that they isolate themselves with their rules and the amount of games that they're going to play. Like they're
too good for us.
They're too good for it. They don't want to, and so I think that's a limiting factor to where they end up.
Yeah, but at this point, it's either that or nothing. So
here's
it's like the Pac-12 right now. They require you to be a tier 1 research institution. They're probably going to have to bend those rules if they want.
Yeah.
Well, here's why the Ivy is where they are. To be FBS, you need those scholarships.
Yep.
They do academic.
They don't. So if we're already
give
restructuring this to where you don't need
athletics,
stadium requirements, you don't need all this. Why does the Ivy need to play ball? They can still get top tier recruits. They get 4 stars all the time. People want to go to the schools. They still have a giant name brand globally, like you just said, Chris. Either they would man up, or they would completely just stop and go, guess what? We're going to be like MIT. We don't care about our athletics at all.
That's a good point.
But they already have all the athletic facilities in place. They're already the historic League of Champions. I know Pac-12 says it. Ivy League has tons of champions because they're all from 1908. But the difference is it's either they're going to play ball and go, nope, we're only going to be at the top tier, or they're just going to completely depart from athletics at all and be MIT.
All right, you heard it here first. Basically, Power 5's pulling away to be a super conference. We're going to have a reshuffling in Division 1. With that, the Ivy Leagues are going to drop football, but because of the Title IX stuff, there's going to be a loss of scholarships. All those Ivy League football stadiums are going to become giant Olympic sports facilities, and all of our Olympians will have an Ivy League education in the future. America, you're welcome. Anyways, closing points. The Ivy Olympics. We just hit the hour and a half mark. That's why I know we probably have more we could talk about, but listeners,
we could go for another 30 minutes.
100%. Maybe it'll be part 2. If people want it, comment below or whatever want part 2. We'll get like 2 people. It's gonna be like Adam, Willie, and freaking me.
Matt Frazee won't comment.
Matt Frazee.
Now, Jamie Williams will.
Jamie will be like, great episode, boys. And then he won't even get to
Tyler
this part
in there.
to hear us say that, like, yeah, we totally said you were going to say the exact same thing. Yeah. Anywho, so closing points. College football, I haven't figured out the thumbnail yet, but you guys saw it beforehand. What is it right now, and what can we look forward to, Dustin?
It's going to be the haves and the have-nots. That's what it's going to end up being. It's going to.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, that's it. No, that's it. That's it. It's the haves and the have-nots.
I agree. The writing's on the wall. The haves and have-nots.
The true fan and the money grabbers. That's what it's going to be. The passionate fan base for small stuff, and then the money league.
Yeah, and I'll go with blind optimism. I think kind of what Kyler's point was. I think there's an opportunity here not to make $100 million a school, but for what's left and whether Idaho's involved or not. I was a fan of college football before I was a Vandal, and I'll be a fan of college football with whatever iteration of it still feels like college football.
I got a team no matter what.
Thank you for tuning in to the FCS, the Football Career Show, because my name fits conveniently in the name of our current conference. You can follow us now in podcast form. It should be, I don't know if it'll actually, this episode's the first one, so it might not be available immediately, but if you're listening to this later, now you know. Coming soon, I've got a Blue Bloods episode coming with the Blue Bloods podcast, because that makes sense. So check it out. I want to thank Dustin, Kyler, and Brandon for joining me on season 2. Boys, it is the middle of July. It is 100 degrees. I think where just about all of us live. And college football is right around the corner. Before I know it, it'll be a chilly October.
All right. I know I'm stopping really quick, but we just got to thank our video sponsor today, Marriott. Now, I know what you guys are thinking, like, what the F is this guy talking about? Marriott is sponsoring a video. Yes. So we are going to talk about the Marriott Bonvoy credit card today. I know what most of you are thinking is, yikes, he just said credit card. Credit cards are and Marriott is spendy. That's what I thought too. But thanks to the fine folks at Marriott, many of you have noticed I've been traveling all around the country this year to watch college football. That is thanks to the fine folks at Marriott. And what you might not know is Marriott has over 36 hotel brands underneath their family. That means it is not just those fancy W's, Ritz-Carltons, JW Marriotts that most of you probably drive through cities and see the big buildings and go, man, someday I want to stay there. They also have your town place suites, your Fairfield Inns, your Alofts. They also have homes and villas that you can rent. Whether you're down in Mexico, up in Canada, it doesn't matter. Marriott is everywhere. I was just in Ogden, Utah. They had a Marriott. I was in Moscow. They have a Marriott. I was in Bloomington, Indiana. They have a Marriott. I have been able to circumnavigate the Midwest to West this season so far. Thank you to the Marriott Bonvoy card. And here's a trick for you. Some of you still think that's spendy, and I get that. It is. But that's why they give you points. Up to 16 points whenever you spend it on a Marriott. Up to 6 times points depending on card when you spend it on entertainment or travel. So it's easy to rack up the points. But here's the best part. You don't just have to have the card to be a Marriott member. You can go to Marriott.com right now and sign up for a Bonvoy. Bonvoy is just their membership. You get membership pricing on hotels, sometimes upwards of 20% off these rooms that they're only offering to their Bonvoy members, regardless of having the card or not. So whether credit is for you, credit is not for everybody. I'm not going to come up here and tell you to go into credit card debt. But if you have a card right now or something you've been looking into, you're looking at your first card, explore Marriott, explore Bonvoy. Their bold and boundless cards have endless opportunities and can allow you to travel all around this country watching college football. It's not just that. Myself and Kyler Neal, we got to stay at the beautiful Davenport and beautiful downtown Spokane this summer to watch, the other Admin Lawrence get married. They have hotels like that where you just don't know they're Marriott, and we're able to get it at an absolute steal to where it was almost cheaper than staying at the Best Western in Cheney. So, I'm telling you, I'm not kidding you. I have it. This is not just, here to be here. I have the Marriott Bonvoy card. The fine folks at Marriott have allowed me to travel all around the country. And I'm just telling you about it. They're offering up to 40,000 points if you go to the link in the description. So just click that, sign up, and even if it's not for you, man, we just covered it. Just give yourself a nice little reward for signing up for the free Bonvoy card. Marriott.com, or click the link in the description and get a Marriott Bonvoy membership today. Now we'll let the angry guy keep ranting at you guys.
See ya.
Oh, Rev just left. The first football game of the season is between our teams.
I think he just conceded defeat.
I mean, if he wants to get beat 2 years in a row, so, I'll accept.
That was quite the awkward ending. But
No, put that at the end. If it's still recording.
yeah, it's still recording. Yeah, I'll put it after the closing.
Yeah.
He
Like
just,
what we do at
I
the
don't know if
FCS.
you heard, Rev, but Brandon basically said you guys are losing week 1.
You know what? He's wrong, but I appreciate his optimism. He has to look forward to something because JSU is going to be bottom feeder of Conference USA for the next few years. So, Brandon, it's
Don't
okay.
remind me.
You haven't
Don't
watched much
remind me.
Cuse of football, have you?
Dude, where do you-
Hey, we
No.
had the same mindset going into our game last year.
Yeah, and had a you guys not scored 14 points right up front, you probably would have lost that game. You did win it, or you did win in the last minute. So you guys are fine. I just look forward to whenever your coach gets the NCAA investigating him for something again, like he's done at previous
Please no.
institutions.
Please
I just
no.
can't-
This,
I just
this
can't
is
wait.
the door to the good. Yes.
I
This
just
is
can't
the
wait.
good door. Please don't let anything bad happen.
I just can't wait for Jacksonville State to do the return trip to Cheney. Oh, wait.
Oh wait, no.
What's wrong with Jacksonville State? How can they piss everybody off at this level of football?
We just suck.
Like, not even like they do it in like the oddest ways too. Like,
At least I don't conform to that mindset.
I like them. Stay cocky.